numbers program. Here we're importing math that allows us to use the square root function later on. And then here we're having the user input an integer. They'll choose a number and we will store that into num, just short for number. Then here we've set continue to yes. That allows us to use a while loop. And so we'll check later if the user would like to continue to use this program. But first, we will determine if the number is odd or even. To do that, we will use the number that they entered and we will divide that by 2. And if it equals 0, that means it was even, which means we will print this first statement. Otherwise, we will print this, that the number is odd. We're using that stored value here. We're just letting them know that their number is this number right here. It'll be replaced by what they inputted. And then we will use that here again, saying that if they chose 22, that their number is even, because if it's divided by 2, there's a remainder of 0. So what this module does is it divides their number by 2 and it tells us what the remainder is. And if it is 0, it has to be even. Then we're going to create a list, just a blank list that we can use here. It'll just store things in the list for us. So we're going to go through that list, and each time we are going to begin with the number 1, and then we will use their number and add 1 to that number to the list. So that way we create a list that includes their number because we're looking for factors here. So we're going to take their number and divide that number by every single number, adding or counting up to the number that they inputted. And if it equals 0, if we have a modulus division here, if the remainder is 0, then that is a factor of that number. So if going along with 12, if they put 12 in here, we would divide 12 by 1. And we know 1 and 12 multiplied together would equal 1 or equal 12. So that would give us that 1 and 12 are a factor. But if we divided it by 2, that would also work and it would return 2 and 6. And then if we divided it by 3, we would return that it is a factor, that we would get 3 does work. Say something like 5 is divisible. It's not divisible in 12. So it would not return 5. And then we are going to let them know that the factors of their number are those numbers that we said. So this will just return everything that's stored in this list. We are storing it through this factors.append. If this if statement is true, then we will add it to the factors list. So what that means is if the number is divisible and gives us a remainder of 0, it will add that number into this list. That's what this append statement is doing. It's just adding those into our list. And so if the factors of the number are there, then we will first output every single one of those factors that we added to that list. Otherwise, we will tell them that there is no factors and that it is prime. Okay. And then next we are getting to determine if the number has a perfect square root. So what we're going to do is this is where we imported that math. So this math dot square root will just do a simple square root for us. And so we're going to take their number and do a square root of that number. Say it's 9, then it would give us back 3, and that would work. But say it's not something that works so well. Say we get like a 2 from them when they write down their number. 2 does not have a perfect square root. So we're checking, it would give us a decimal. So we're checking that it is a whole number by using this, putting this number and the square root in parentheses of this int that stands for integer. And it has to be a whole number. And if it is a whole number, then they will be equal to each other. We're just using the same square root over here as we are here, but just one of them makes sure that it is a whole number. So they have to match. So we're writing 2, the square root of 2, does it equal square root of 2? And then we are just making sure that it is a whole number. So the square root of 2 is like 1.4 something. And so it would not work because this would not give us a whole number. Then, if it is a perfect square root, something like 9 or 4, we'll tell them that it does have a perfect square root. Otherwise, if it's something like 2, like we mentioned, it will not have a perfect square root. We let them know. And then we ask if they would like to continue the program. So if they input yes, we will run through this whole program again. That's why we set this continue to equal yes. So that way we cross-reference it to make sure. So this while loop will just continue to repeat over and over and make sure that they do indeed want to continue this program. If they type anything else besides yes, it will end the program. And then if they would like to continue, we will have them set a new number for num, this variable that we have. And then it'll run through the whole process again. It'll just check because we can just change the value here. If they put 15 here and they go through this whole thing and then they get to here, they could put a whole new number like 12 and it would run through this again and it would check for 12 for these factors and if it's even and if it has a square root. And then when they're done and they say that they're done, we'll just let them know that we're happy that they use this program. And that is it for this. I hope that all makes sense.